So this is going to be a little bit of an update to the channel of 7,000 subscribers over the last 13 years, right around there. I probably started around 2011, 2012 to be more intentional about personal development. And now we got a testimonial to Catholicism, which, to be honest, I didn't think would be happening ever at any time. And this is essentially the beginning to right now, which we could go back to the childhood. Childhood essentially was my mom bringing us to church. I didn't understand why we were going to church. I went through CCD, I got all my sacraments, but we were just going, in my mind, to just go. It was a good guardrail to put into our life on the chaos of the world, especially in the light of what I was going through as the youngest kid and just rebelling against everything. So I just went along with it. It's not that big of a deal. It's only 45 minutes every Sunday, and then you just live however you want. This is how many Catholics on Long Island actually take Catholicism. They just take it as a thing that you do, but you don't practice. You just go get baptized, you get your confirmation, your communion, you get married in a church, but from Sunday after church till Sunday right before church, you could do whatever you want. This is how a lot of Italian and Irish Catholics on Long Island, unfortunately, as I fell into, was doing. So in the beginning, there was light. No. So in the beginning, I was a rebel. I was the youngest in my family by a couple of years. I was 10 years younger than my brother, 8 years, 7.5 years younger than my sister. And as I grew up, my grandma was also in the household as well. And it was a lot to take care of all the kids, my grandma, financially and everything else. And I rebelled. I was the youngest, and I just did all the things that was worldly. And the first experience was when I was 12. That was the first time that I was introduced to alcohol by my buddy. We got drunk on New Year's. My mom did not know that his parents were not home. I called them, my parents, because I said, listen, I don't know what we drank, but I can tell you right now, my buddy's throwing up. He's passed out. The parents aren't here. So my parents run up. They're within walking distance. That was the first time my parents were like, okay, we got to keep an eye on this guy. But that was the first time I was introduced to pleasure and chaos. And from that point on, it was a steady downhill decline in my life. And it was all from my choosing. But in the beginning, I didn't know that. I was just a victim of the world. It was everyone else's fault. It wasn't my fault. Of course, it was everyone else's fault. It was never my fault. So I then go into middle school, or actually I'm in middle school. That was the first time that I was introduced to, say, ladies and the excitement that you can get from being with women. And then I got suspended in middle school from stealing stuff from the arts school or store, whatever you want to call it. So now I'm really going down into chaos. I remember the first time that someone that I knew, their parents, my buddy's parents, were like, yeah, let's take it easy from hanging out with this guy. You know, he's got these behaviors that are, you know, he got suspended from middle school. That's kind of weird. So my parents, just like they did with my brother and sister, sent me a Catholic school. It was an all-boys Catholic school called Chaminade on Long Island. It's great for academics. It's great for sports. I was not good at academics. I was very good at creating non-structured to my life. In other words, I was getting, not suspended, but I was getting demerits, which means that you are going against the code of the school, whether that's cheating or stealing, whether that is copying off someone else's test, plagiarizing, getting cliff notes. Again, this is the early 2000s or late 90s, so you know, it was a little bit different now. There's no cell phones, there was beepers and whatever, but nobody had a beeper. Everyone's just rolling around, just throwing rocks at each other, beating each other up. It was, you know, probably the last time that kids grew up without cell phones. It probably was, actually. And I go into college, or go into high school. I am outside of the secular high school that I was at, where I knew all the girls, I knew all the guys, I knew where the parties were at in that secular school. Then I go to a parochial school, a Catholic school, and I don't fit in. There's a bunch of kids that are really good at sports. I'm not. There's a bunch of kids that are really good at academics. I'm not. So I'm in this limbo, this purgatory, no pun intended, of I don't know where I fit in. So the only way that I fit in was to be the guy that was crazy, the guy that really took it to the extreme, took it to the max, the guy that was at the party, that was doing the destructive behaviors, the guy that was like, okay, that's a little too much. And then I arrive and I go, let's take it a little bit further. And At that time, I start sneaking out and I'm drinking, I'm partying, hanging out with girls. I dabble in cigarettes at that time, which really wasn't a big deal. It was kind of just one of those phases that you get into, but that was also just kind of a precursor to a bunch of other stuff that I got into. Fast forward to my high school years, people start talking about college. I don't know where I'm gonna go. I just start applying to schools. I don't really care about school. My GPA in high school was an 81.9 average. And I got into one school, York College of Pennsylvania. It's a small school, about 5,000 people in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Pennsylvania. I said, all right, that's the only school that accepted me out of 5. Everyone else rejected me. I guess we'll go here. Arrived freshman year. This was the complete downfall leading to a lot of stuff in my life. My freshman year, being away from home and just being in an environment that was just catered to my desires and my pleasures, which was all out partying. I had a fake ID. At 18, I was getting into bars that it was 18 to get in, 21 to drink. And we were taking full advantage of that. We were drinking nonstop my freshman year. I failed all my classes pretty much. I got a point-something GPA. I never showed up to class. I had no responsibility. I had no accountability. I didn't even know where the library was. People are like, go to the library. I'm like, someone's got to tell me where that is. I was not showing up to class. I didn't care about anything. And my buddy joins the rugby team his freshman year, first semester, and he was my roommate. And then he joins the fraternity, or at least he starts to consider pledging. And I go, you know what, those things sound pretty good because it opens the doors to the bar, it opens the door to the parties. So why don't I do that? So second semester is really when I just start taking everything to the max. So I joined rugby, joined the fraternity, started pledging, I should say. I pledged the fraternity. Second semester, freshman year. I think it was freshman year. Might have been, I don't know. But that was the beginning of 7 days a week for my entire college career of just partying. Substances started coming in there, whether it's powder or smoke or hallucinogens or pills or whatever we could get our hands on that we could afford. We knew the bouncers, so we'd never get in trouble. We knew the bouncers, so we'd always get in. They would tell us, listen, not tonight. We got the LCB, which is the Liquor Control Board of Pennsylvania. Don't get in tonight or don't cause any problems. We knew people that were upperclassmen, so they had our backs. You felt like this heavyweight walking around, knowing all these upperclassmen as you're a freshman and sophomore playing rugby in a fraternity, and you're introduced to all the sororities, all the older girls, all the older guys, the bars, the parties, the formals, going away, traveling for rugby, everything. And it was just an environment that just catered to all my desires. That's the best way to say it. And it was wild, okay? I would have buddies that would visit on a Friday night. We would host a party. Then Saturday, we would host another party, go out to the bars, then a late night, then a late night, then a late night. Now it's, 2 back-to-back 4 a.m. Days. And then by Sunday, they're in their car, and I'm like, dude, why are you leaving now? I'm like, we got a whole day. It's football. Get into the car and let's go party. They're like, listen, your school's crazy. You guys are crazy. Your fraternity's crazy. Your rugby team's crazy. Your bars are crazy. Your after parties are crazy. So I'm looking at them like, okay, that's weird. You only here, we're 2 days. I'm here 7 days a week doing this every single day. And we started to live in the fraternity house. We lived in the rugby house. So we just had an open door. We never locked our doors. I don't even think we had keys to our bedrooms, to our front door, to our back door. People just came and go. Hey, listen, you guys are hosting a party tonight. Awesome. You guys are, you're getting a keg on the front stoop. Awesome. And now we're starting to attract attention from the cops. A bunch of us got arrested a bunch of times. I think I was probably 3 times in Pennsylvania. I had a warrant out for my arrest because they sent a mail to my house. I was during the summer, I was back on Long Island. So I had to take a York bus or a Greyhound to York and stand in front of a judge and just lie through my teeth. And I had to gift the gab, so I kind of got out of a bunch of stuff. And then bad stuff started to happen. Obviously in high school you get suspended, or middle school you get suspended. You start sneaking out. You start doing some things that you shouldn't have. And then freshman year I think it was my freshman year going into sophomore year, is my birthday in July. Buddy drives my car all the way, around all the places. We get back, and I'm the last stop that needs to just drive home. And my girlfriend at the time, her friend left her cell phone, is vibrating in the car. I pick it up. I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, hey, listen, my friend's cell phone's in the car. can you drop it off? And she's about 15, 20 minutes away. I'm like, that's 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back. I'm intoxicated. Literally I get the call to the next stoplight, I get pulled over, arrested, car impounded. I'm underage, I have a fake ID, which is a felony because it's after 9/11, spend the night in jail, which is a wild experience, to be honest. I was with a domestic violence guy, another guy. The bathroom is public. It's a crazy situation. Get into the van, the bus, to go down in front of the judge. Parents are in the back. I had to call them that night and say, hey, listen, by the way, I got picked up by the police for DWI. So they took away my license till 21. So that should have been a red flag. Should have been, hey, listen, we should stop doing this. But it wasn't. I continued that summer. I was just always the non-driver. That's what it was. I was in the front seat, I was in the back seat, but I was always the guy still bringing the party. And during this time, people are starting to get smart with their academics. They're starting to talk about, hey, listen, sophomore year, I might be getting into this. And all I'm thinking about is just bring me back to my rugby, fraternity, sorority, parties, all these, the bars, everything else. And it was crazy. As many drugs that we could get involved, as much drinking we can get involved, as many kegs we can get involved, as many ways that we could just turn off the lights, shut off the music, and just have the cops not know that it's either my fraternity house or not know it's my house back on Long Island when my parents go away. I was that guy. And it was wild because now I'm starting to see actions of my consequences my consequences of my actions where I go in front of the business administration board, and they're like, listen, you're not taking the classes you need to take. You're taking all these easy tennis racket style classes and you're not even passing those. Statistics 1 failed it. Took it again. Statistics 1 failed it. And they said if you fail it a third time, you're kicked out of school, kicked out of the degree. And I was like, all right, this is crazy. So I started just doing whatever I needed to do, cheating, putting little things under my notes, putting it, this is pre-cell phone, so you're looking over here, you're paying off guys, you're rearranging the seats so you could easily see under the arms. It was a bad time, I just, group projects was not involved. All I wanted to do was just go and just do ridiculous things, jump off roofs, have stories for the next night, getting into fights, all these wild things. Then the next was, it was either that summer or the summer afterwards where I had this was probably the closest call to death that I've ever had. It was on Long Island. If you're on the Long Island Railroad, you get off the stop, and what we used to do late at night is people would have their heads against the windows as they're passed out and the train continues to the next station or the next stop all the way to the end of the line. And we would just, bang on the glass. We would hit the glass and wake them up, and we're outside on the platform as the train is going away. They're getting mad and everything else. We used to do that all the time. There was one time, there was a guy, I don't know if we exchanged some words, and he fell asleep. I get off, I'm at Mineola, I'm with my buddy. That's the train station stop. The doors close. His head is against the window, who I wanted to, hit the glass. And the train starts taking off, and the Long Island Railroad, it takes off pretty fast. So it's going, and now I start chasing after it, and I throw my arm out with all my momentum. My body starts hitting the car, and I can't push off the car because it's going faster and faster. As I try and push off the car, next thing I notice, I wake up, I'm surrounded by, I don't know, about 20, 30 people, all the people that got off the train station. Everyone's got this crazy look on their face, shocked, awe, like this, and I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, whatever. My buddy's over me, and he's like, dude, you all right? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I try and get up, and he's like, dude, take a knee for a minute. And I didn't know what was going on. Everyone just starts backing away real slow. So what he said was, essentially the train started taking off, and I'm leaning against the train, and I can't push away from the train because it's going too fast. So my whole body weight is against the train, and I'm spinning with the train. And between the cars, you have the gap. So I fell, or I didn't fall, but my body went in between, and that launched me onto the platform. To this day, my left leg, from my kneecap to my hip, there's no feeling, there's no nerves. So my left leg must have hit that. And it's pretty wild because I literally, on the entire left side of my leg, from my knee to my hip, I have no feeling whatsoever. To this day, I don't think I'll ever get feeling back. So all those nerves are done. My buddy was like, listen, everyone was there because they thought you were dead. I was like, that's crazy. And the reason being is I blacked out. I didn't know. I blacked out because I got a severe concussion. I couldn't get out of bed the next day. And, I blamed it on that I was a hangover, and then I looked it up. This is during, the NFL concussion. Wayne Corbett from the New York Jets was going through some stuff. And I was like, I think I got a concussion. I literally could not push myself up. That's how bad it was. I could not, it just hurt. It was crazy. And actually from that time, I've gotten concussions, a bunch of concussions afterwards. I got one where I got knocked out in rugby. I got another one where I got knocked out when I was riding a bike in the front wheel. My shirt went in between. I just got launched over it and I just totally blacked out, landed on my face, skidded on the asphalt. There was another one where my front wheel as well gave out and I went over that and I skidded on that. So I've had concussions. This was the worst. And of course, you think, oh, okay, you had all these things going on, all these fights, arrested a bunch of times, license suspended, all this drug use, all this substance abuse, all this hallucinogens, all this pot, all this partying. Grades are terrible. I think I ended up with a 2.8 average. I think that was right around a 2.8 average. I actually had to look it up for something. I forgot what it was, but I had to send over my transcript, and I got a 1.4 in my final semester of college because I didn't go. I cheated on my test, or cheated on my final exam. The administrator called me and my buddy in, and I just said, listen, let him off the hook. I stole his paper and copied off of it. We were kind of in cahoots, but I was like, don't get this guy in trouble. Let him, go along with it. And that actually was the beginning of a change that I didn't even know, which I'm telling you this because I was in a victim mindset. I finally was able to play a sport and I felt accepted in the sport, and I was in a fraternity, so I knew where all the parties were, and that's where I was most accepted. And academically, I had no reason why I would even try academically, and that's going to go into my story. So essentially, I supposed to graduate my senior year. All my buddies are talking about the jobs they're getting into law school, taking the LSATs, going into graduate school, CPA, CFA, all my buddies got all these ambitions going on. I'm just like, yeah, I didn't even graduate. I got to continue. And I remember it, I was at my graduation and I walked. So I just walked across the stage. I didn't get a diploma, and my brother confronts me and he's like, dude, I took off work. I brought my family down here. Your parents came down, our family came down. We're staying at a local hotel. Why are we here? You didn't even graduate. And I don't know, I made up something stupid. And that was kind of a wake-up call where my brother's like, why are we even here? So I had to go that summer semester, the full summer, as my first semester, and then the second semester of my senior year, so I did 5 years, was the fall semester. And it was during the summer where everything changed for a little bit of the better. I'm staying with my buddy who is 2 years younger than me. He's a fraternity brother, and he's managing 3 Rita ice cream store, or 3 Rita ices. And he's 20 years old and he's managing 3 of them. He's waking up early, he's working all day, he's making a ton of money, he owns a car. I don't own a car, I've never owned a car. To say I've never owned a car. License suspended, things like that. And this guy's got his stuff together. And I'm working at the West York Diner off I-85. I had to take a 45-minute bus, which was the Rapid Transit in York, to the West York Diner. In an 8-hour shift, I'd probably make $30 to $35. I would tip out the cooks, tip out the other one else. Then I would walk 45 minutes home through a place I probably shouldn't have been walking through, stop at a convenience store. Just the convenience store is, just like a tiny little bodega. Go in there, get 2 Colt 45s, drink it, smoke with my buddy, black out, and then redo it every single day for the summer until one time I got a call from my girlfriend at the time. And, I don't even know why women looked my direction. I was a total mess, total loser. And this girl was totally out of my league. She was 2 years younger. She was on the dance team. Every guy wanted to be with her. And for whatever reason, she liked me. And she called me and she's like, hey, listen, let's hang out. And I was like, well, I kept on saying all these excuses. She's like, what do you mean you can't hang out? You've been saying the same thing for weeks now. And I never told her that I was still at York. She thinks I'm on Long Island with her. I was just making up all these excuses. And as she says, I just don't get it. And I was like, well, listen, I'm still at York. She's like, what do you mean you're at York? You're a senior. You graduated. You're supposed to be on Long Island. I made some story up. And I remember this specifically because it was rigidly hot out that day. And I'm sitting on the front stoop, and it's probably in the 90s, and the sun is just baking me. And I'm on my cell phone, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm still here in York. I ended up hanging up the phone, and I just remember looking around. Buddies are graduating, they're going to graduate school, going to law school, going to CFA, CPA, doing all these incredible things, and I'm a loser. Didn't even graduate, fifth-year senior, living with a guy 2 years younger who manages a bunch of, ice readers. And what are you doing, Charles? What are you doing, you loser? And it was probably the 50th, 40th purchase on Amazon.com. And at the time, it was weird to order anything online because this is 2007. Facebook is 3 or 4 years old. YouTube is 1 year old. The iPhone isn't even launched yet. There's no Instagram, there's no TikTok, nothing. So I ordered 2 books on Amazon.com. One was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dr. Susan Jeffers. And it was the first book ever in my entire life that I actually read cover to cover. I read it in one sitting. I read it from 10 p.m. to about 1 a.m. It's only about 235 pages, right around there. And I was shocked. I didn't even know that you can change. I thought that because I wasn't good at school, I couldn't change. In other words, if you do studying well, you're going to do tests well. And because I wasn't doing studying well, I wasn't doing tests well. So that means because I wasn't doing tests well, I couldn't change. I couldn't do better. I had such a victim mindset. I was blaming everyone. I was blaming the cops, the government, the police, who I said twice, my parents, school, teachers, friends, family. I blamed everybody. I was a victim. I was a victim of my circumstances. It was everyone else's fault. Of course, it wasn't my fault. None of my partying, drug use, chasing girls, none of that. And then I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this changed everything because Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway introduced me to the idea that everyone goes through a period in their life before they master something where they're fearful. So it's the first time they go public speaking, the first time they do stand-up comedy, the first time they get onto the field as a starter in a sport, the first time, there's gonna be fear. In my mind, I thought they just are amazing. The first time that Seinfeld gets up, he crushes it. The first time Bill Burr gets up on stand-up, he crushes it. Meanwhile, they all talk about how much they floundered for months, every single day for months or years. They floundered. And I didn't know that. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People essentially taught me that you can change or learn anything in your life. That was totally new to me. That was totally new. If you want to learn marketing, if you want to learn public speaking, if you want to learn how to influence sales, health, money, investing, stocks, bonds, if you want to be in a relationship, if you want to attract a woman, if you want to go out with a guy, if you want to be in a great on-fire relationship or marriage or whatever, you can actually learn this. So for the next 15 years, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this entire YouTube channel was dedicated to personal development, personal help, self-development, and I traveled over the world, all over the country, every city, every speaker, every book, every video, every PDF, every course, everything. I went through over 1,000 books, hundreds of speeches, hundreds of seminars, everything. I just wanted to know the truth. That's all I wanted to know. I finally started to peel away the victim mindset, and underneath the victim mindset was the truth, that you can find out what the truth is. And the truth is available. And the truth about anything, the truth about money, the truth about influence, the truth about relationships, society, sports, real estate, whatever, there is a truth that you can actually learn. And that was my entire focus, where my eyes were peeled away from this not only victim mindset, but everything could be learned. Everything could be improved upon. If I wasn't good at running, I could learn how to run. If I wasn't good at swimming, I could learn how to swim. If I wasn't good at understanding macros and micros or lifting or gym classes, health, mindset, sleep, whatever the case is, if you drink too much, if you have too much coffee, whatever the case is, you can learn. So for the next 15 years, that was it. All I was trying to do was just one more thing. That's all I kept on doing, one more thing. And the apex was 2019, right before COVID. 2019, I did 4 or 5 triathlons. I was in the best shape of my life. My business was on fire. I was a total atheist up until this point. And then about 2018, a year before, a lot of these people started to talk about God, and they started bringing in scripture into their books. But these weren't modern books. These were old school books. These were the Oj Medinos. These were the Earl Nightingales from the 50s, the 40s, the 30s. And all I was thinking was, why are you bringing scripture into this? This has nothing to do with scripture. This has nothing to do with God. I was living my entire life through pleasure and lust and drugs and all these things that just felt good. It was all just, I am God, I can change, self-improvement, self-development, anything that happens is my fault, and that was my mindset. There is no God, everything is materialistic, everything is physical, and that's it. And then weirdly in 2018, 2019, a lot of people started talking about God. I'm like, well, if these people who are really smart, who I respect, who I am getting incredible amounts of knowledge from, is believing or quoting scripture, there has to be something to this. So I started to be okay with maybe agnostic, maybe not, there might be a God, there might not be a God, I don't know who the God is. There's a lot of people talking about chakras and, I'll get into a bunch of that. So then I was in the best shape of my life, 2019. 2019 is when everything changed in my life because I reached the pinnacle of personal development. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, dozens of coaches, dozens of people one-on-one, spending 10 grand for one person for a weekend, spending $5K in a group setting of 5 people, spending $1,500 for a coach for real estate. I needed coaches. I wanted coaches, group environment, personal environment, whatever. I'll pay for your $500 dinner, your $1,000 dinner. Just give me one nugget of advice. That's all I was operating on. And it really hit the head in 2019 when I was in the best shape of my life. I made incredible amounts of money in real estate, and then my father dies. At the end of the year, I ended up getting intoxicated for the first time in probably a year with my family. And it was fine because your father just passes away unexpectedly. And I continued that a little bit, drinking. And I've never drank on my own, but then COVID hits. I'm down in Florida, everything shuts down. I go out and I pick up a beer I pick up a 6-pack and I drink for the first time by myself. And for the next 5 years, I abused alcohol. But during those 5 years, I went into the deepest amount of research in my entire life, way more than personal development, way more than anything this world can offer. And I started going down every single rabbit hole as everyone else probably did. I went down every conspiracy, every single hollow earth, flat earth. We have aliens that are running the world, reptiles are running the world, Nephilim is running the world. I went into all the paid programs from David Icke to Billy Carson. I was paying for their stuff, to Gaia.com, which had incredible stuff. But it's talking about everything that you are God, that you are connected directly to source. So that's how I started to believe it, because at this point, it started to make sense. Then I read a book called Biocentrism. Biocentrism essentially is non-duality. Non-duality means that there is nothing but you. You are connected to reality. And whether that's true or not, their premise is that when you close your eyes, the probability of all the energy to be physical is 0. Everything is on a wave. And then you open your eyes, and they call it wave function collapsing. So the wave function collapses into the physical world that you see. I was on this for months. I was on this for probably a year. And I was dating a girl at the time, and I was bringing it up with her, and obviously COVID's going on, a bunch of stuff is going on, and I'm not working, and all I'm doing is drinking at night, and then during the day, again, I'm not working, so I'm studying 12 hours a day from 2020 to 2022 for 2 straight years every single day. I was paying money, monthly money, and just consuming everything, every conspiracy, the wildest things. And then I started getting into the chakras, the pineal gland, and that DMT, and there's a spiritual realm that we can tap into, the astral realm that we could tap into, and that's when I started going into that. And I started opening doors that I should not have opened doors, and I paid for it in 2023 with some crazy experiences, which I'll get into in a second. So the CIA talked about a bunch of stuff that there's a spiritual world that the Satanists know about, and they can get there and essentially affect people. You could do, astral projecting, you could do remote viewing, you could do all these things. All the conspiracies know about this, where you can essentially travel out of this physical plane onto the spiritual plane wherever you want, and that's what I wanted to do. So I started learning. I'm not going to give you the institute, but there's an institute that talks about this. There's binaural beats. There's a way that you can hold crystals, a copper one in one hand and a metal one in the other hand, and you have a crystal on your head, and you have the binaural beats, and then you're sitting on your back, and you're doing this breathing exercise that puts you in a or a epoxy state where the amount of air going to your brain kind of brings down your heart rate, and then your body can leave, or your soul can leave, or whatever can leave and enter the astral realm. And I did this a lot. This is a lot for months, every single day, trying to astral project, trying to get into the astral realm. And there was one time that I was on my back, and so this part of it was a 30-day process. So this part of the tape or the video was 30 minutes. I knew that. So the video stops on my breathing exercise, and then the binaural beats come in. And now, after 30 minutes, I am just bawling out of nowhere. So I'm thinking, I don't know what released this. I have no thoughts. I don't know where I am. I have no feelings. I literally don't know where I am, but I am in my bedroom, but I don't know I'm in my bedroom. And I'm just crying for whatever reason. So I'm thinking, oh, this is good. I'm releasing energy and blah, blah, blah. It was towards the end of 2022. Again, I'm aggressively drinking. I'm still chasing women too much. And this is when it starts to get a little crazy. In 2023, I start hearing this cat outside of my window on the 7th floor of New York City. And it sounds like the cat is screaming because it's in a pot of boiling. It's a screech. And it was crazy because I've never heard it before, and I've been living there for 7 years. And out of nowhere, I'm thinking somebody got a cat and they're leaving it outside, and the cat really wants to go inside. I would open my window, I would look outside, I would see all the outdoor spaces, and I could see all the backyards, and I don't see a cat, and the cat would stop. I'd close the window, and I'm getting chills. This next part is going to be wild. I would hear it again while I'm sleeping. So now I'm turning on the radio, because I don't want to hear this cat crying. I would open the window, nothing. So now I'm asking around, like, does anyone else hear this cat? I'm asking my neighbors, I'm asking the super, what are you talking about, dude? Now I start to smell cigarette smoke that is poignant. It's almost like someone was like right into my nostrils, and I'm getting wild chills. And I'm just sitting there, and out of nowhere, it would just be a wafting smell right up into my nose of cigarettes. And at this point, I'm hearing the cat, I'm smelling these cigarettes, I'm emailing my management company. I'm writing notices all up and down the top 2 floors, the bottom 2 floors, and saying, someone's got to stop smoking. I'm opening my window, nothing. Anytime I open the window, anytime I open my door to go outside of my apartment, nothing. Then I put my nose where the vent is, nothing. But when I go to the middle of the room, that's where it is. And that's when I just start saying, I don't know what's going on, but people need to stop smoking because it's going to affect my health. This happened for months. Now, I am starting to see black flashes. And by the way, I am still the center of my world. I believe that astral projecting and the pineal gland is bringing me to an astral realm, and I'm still astral projecting, and I'm still doing all these things to bring my body to the spiritual realm. That's what I believe, because I've been told by all these conspiracy theorists that this is it. So now it's about 5 or 6, probably about May. Cat, cigarette smell, and now I'm starting to see flashes of black light. And a lot of them would be, and follow me here, so a fly would fly right at my head. I'm on my computer, whatever, looking up all these conspiracy theories, and I would go like this, and then I would look around for this fly, and then when I look around for the fly, my brain changes what I just saw to a flash of light. So as it's coming towards me, my brain registers, this is a fly. I go like this. This happened enough times that my sister actually experienced it as well when I was back on Long Island, and she saw what I was seeing. And then my brain would register it as a flash afterwards. And I had no control over my brain thinking it's a fly over a flash, and I didn't know what it was because I'm looking around. There is no fly. There's no fly. Then one night, I am passed out. It's probably midnight. And I hear what sounds like someone scream in my head. Charles, my name, Charles. I'm getting terrible goosebumps. It was screamed in my head. Then my brain registers that it's outside of my head. I throw open my covers. I tell Alexa to turn all lights on. I pick up my hockey stick. I'm like, someone's in my apartment right now. I start searching my apartment. I open the closets. I look in my bathroom, I look under my bed, I look behind my couch, I look behind my other bed, or my bed, but behind the other side, and I'm like, someone's in this apartment right now. I go out into the hallway, it's like 12:30 in the middle of the morning. no one is in the hallway. So I leave the lights on, I turn on the radio, and I'm like, someone screamed in my head. But it sounded like after I woke up, it was outside of my head. But someone in my head screamed in my head. So I'm bringing together all of this stuff. This cat that is screaming outside of my window, the cigarette smell that's right around me, the screaming, seeing black flashes and white flashes all around me. Now at this point, I'm starting to understand that there is a spiritual realm, and now I'm used to it, and I don't see as a spiritual realm as bad. I just see it as the spiritual realm. And flies coming at me that are not there, seeing flies that are not there. And then one day, as I'm starting to go down the rabbit hole of near-death experiences, in my kitchen, my funnel that I would funnel my protein into my water bottle flies off my wall onto the floor. And I was like, okay, this may not be good. Because when I picked it up and I put it how it was hanging on the wall, there's no way that could have happened. There's no breeze, you're in the kitchen, there's no window, and it just flew off onto the ground, and I would have to physically pull it off and then throw it onto the ground for it to do that. So now it's July, August. Now it's September. Now I'm starting to think that this isn't a good spirit. I believe I'm a deist now, that there is a God, I'm connected to God, source, energy, universe, whatever. Non-dualism, I am God. Literally, this is what I was thinking. Okay, I am God. I can download things from God. I'm literally listening to all these people that are listening into the spiritual realm and everything else. Now we know what those are. Those are not good. Those are not angels telling those people good things. October rolls around, 2023. I am watching a video, and during this video of a near-death experience, they bring up a name that's in the Bible that I've never heard about because I've never read the Bible or anything else. And they said the demon Beelzebub or Beelzebub. It's one of those two. And I was like, that's weird. I never heard about demons in the Bible. But this person who had a near-death experience went down to hell, talked about all these demons, and one of them was called Beelzebub or Beelzebub. It's one of those two. So I look it up. The photo on Google, October 2023, the big photo, you know how you would normally see a person? It was a huge photo of a fly. Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. And then you read it, demon of the flies. That was it. I'm getting major chills. I'm like, that's what I was seeing. That is the door I unlocked. Through all the partying, through all the substances, through all the womanizing, through all the astral projecting, through all the occult stuff that I was looking into, manual P. Hall, just all these 33rd degree Masons that I was listening to thousands of hours. The occult stuff is it. The Masons are it. It was bad. I was deep. My buddy, who was my accountability partner at work, was away on a 1 month, because his now wife is not from America, so he was, I think, in Australia or New Zealand at the time. And he comes back, and I go, here's the experiences that I've had for the last year. I believe demons are real. I believe that angels are real. And during that 1 month, I literally started going down every single biblical story. Did the flood actually happen? Yes. Was there a person called Jesus Christ that came here? Yes. Did he actually resurrect? Yes. Are there other factors outside of the Bible that can coincide and historically group all of the things that happened in the Bible and factually collaborate to what the Bible says, whether it's Greek, Roman accounts, whether it was people that were not Christian, not Jewish, that might have been pagan or whatever, writers. And I went down that whole thing and I just said, dude, here's the experiences. I had demonic experiences all this year. I need to know what to do to find out what the heck is going on and to get in graces with Jesus Christ. So he puts me in touch with this spiritual advisor, and all the people I'm now going to be talking to for the next 7-8 months are Protestants. And at this point, I'm hungry for the actual truth. During this time, up until age 22, when I was at school partying, fraternity, rugby, all these parties, I was just looking for the truth. The truth was, I'm a partier. That's who I am. That's my identity. Then for the next 15 years, I went to personal development, self-development, self-help, all these seminars, all these coaches, just improving me. And what I noticed was, that's the truth. Personal development is the truth. COVID hits. Now I'm getting into who's the Fed? Who runs the world? Why are there governments that are overthrown? are revolutions good? The French Revolution, was that actually good? The Russian Revolution, was that actually good? Through China, through all these, the Arab Spring, were these actually good? Or were there people that are rewriting history? And now I'm saying, Jesus Christ is real. Put me in touch with however what I need to do. Now I'm a believer. So I get in touch with a guy, or I'm put in touch with this guy who is a Bible-thumping, Bible-believing, God-fearing man who's about 70, incredible shape, just a guy that I needed to be put in touch with at that moment. So welcome to part 3. Essentially, up until this point, part 1 was all about college, personal development. Part 2 was about personal development going up to my demonic experiences in 2023 and all of the attacks that I got in 2023. And then the attacks got worse once I told my buddy, put me in touch with a spiritual advisor who's an on-fire Christian, and essentially that's when the attacks increased. You're not going to get really attacked noticeably when you're not a believer, because you're already not a believer, so you're out of communion with heaven. You're gonna end up in hell. And as harsh as that sounds, that's where I was and where I deserve to be my whole life because of the choices I, in free will, made by rejecting God, by being in communion with lust and all of the pleasurable aspects, whether that was substances, drugs, women, gambling, partying, lying, cheating, stealing, whatever. Anything that made my truth the truth. And now we're getting into the part where it gets real fun, real fast. So I get in touch with this guy. He's on fire for the Lord, and he says, I'm nervous. So I start talking about my story. Minute and a half, I stop because he hasn't said hello. He goes, do you know how much Satan hates you? No. Sir, let me repeat that question again. Do you understand how much Satan hates you? No, I don't. He interrupts me. He wants to kill you. He wants to steal from you. He wants to destroy you. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy you. We go for about 45 minutes. Boom, like that. Everything in my life changes. I don't want to be in hell. I want to be in heaven. What do I need to do? I'm listening to this guy. He goes, say the sinner's prayer or whatever it is where you're born again. I say that. He's an ex-Catholic where he talks about, hey, listen, it's all idolatry. It's all blaspheming. You're talking to the dead, Mary, the saints. None of that is real. It's man-made. This is the true Bible. This is the true faith. Just have faith. You don't need works. All these things. I'm soaking it up. Yeah, whatever you need. I just don't want to be in hell, and I don't want demonic attacks anymore. He goes, we got to do deliverance. What's deliverance? We got to deliver you from all the spirits, all the doors, all the iniquities, all the transgressions, all the sins that you knowingly opened the door to, or unknowingly. I was like, yeah, but I didn't. He goes, it doesn't matter. The Father, God the Father, is a legalist. The spiritual realm is a legalist. And he started putting me in touch with people who do deliverances on a daily basis. And I started learning about this. And he did 2 1.5-hour deliverances on me. And let me tell you, it's wild. I started coughing. I started crying. I had a big prick in my thumb that I forgot which, because he was breaking generational curses. And then I look up self-deliverances. And I'm forgetting this guy, but I did about 30 self-deliverances, and I can go deep into those because the experiences of my self-deliverances, where I was guided through the self-deliverances, this was a guy in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that did it on mass scale, and I'm getting chills, were crazy, the experiences that I had. Things that would be 10 minutes and it lasted an hour and a half. I thought it was about 20 minutes. It was 3 hours long where I was just sitting there, just getting healed. So now I'm all on board. He goes, you got to start going to Protestant Bible studies. He didn't call it Protestant Bible studies, but Bible studies, you have to go to this church. You don't like that church, go to this church. There's a men's conference, go there. So I'm soaking it all up. During this time though, each deliverance, as he said the attacks are going to get worse. And that's essentially what happened. So the dark side, the demons, they don't care if you are part of, and I'll get into the legality of it too. They don't care if you follow all of this nonsense that I was following, like chakras and pineal gland and non-dualism and, I'm God, agnostic, Freemasonry, occult stuff. Doesn't matter. As long as you don't follow Jesus Christ. That's the only person. And when I followed Jesus Christ, the attacks got bad. And he said, biblically, I think it's, you cast out 77 times 7, or 77, worse now, start attacking, go inside to your soul. And that happened. I would be delivered out of, say, lustful images. Next day, boom, right back into it. Or next week or the week after, I'm like, why can't I break this? Because the enemy doesn't want you to break it. So now I'm going to a Protestant men's conference, all men, and I'm looking around, and this is my first time, so I'm just listening to all these people that know the Bible, on fire for the Lord. These are men. I've never seen a men's conference. I'm on board. So we go in, and I remember from the first jump, I could not get into the worship. It was hard. It was just, I'm looking around at all these masculine guys, former military, former police, all these former SWAT guys that are in shape. The people that were talking were very masculine. And we had these words and their hands were in the air. And I just remember thinking, I can't get into this. By the end of it, all day, I got into it. I had someone lay hands on me, pray for me. Then someone else laid their hands on me and prayed for me. And they said, what do you need? And it was great. I was on fire. I go home and I say, okay, where do I go to church? Someone said, go to this one church. So I go to that church. Halfway through the church, they say, before we get into we just did worship, before we get into the message by the pastor, take a little cracker and grape juice break. I was like, this is weird. I'm not going to take a grape juice cracker break. But then this girl comes up to me. She goes, oh, welcome to the church. I was like, oh, I could get used to this. I like this. I feel at home now that this girl just walks up to me. And now I like godly women. And up until that point, because I was all about the world. And I cut off relationships and dating and everything else at that point. Now we're into 2024. And I left there, I talked to the pastor, he said, come back next week. And then I went to another church and that pastor said, come back next week. And now I'm just going to church and being like, come back next week and everything else. And there was just something missing. I don't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. But again, this whole time, I just want the truth. What is the foundation to reality? What is the foundation to life? What is the foundation to theology, to Jesus Christ? Who are there all these churches? Then I started to study the Protestant Reformation. And this is when everything started to change. There's a 3-part series on Apocrypha Apocalypse, which is a YouTube channel, Apocrypha Apocalypse. And there's a 3-part series. I started listening to this, and I found out that against the people's will, the books known as the Apocrypha was taken out of the Bible. I didn't know this. I thought the Catholics added books because I'm a Protestant now. Then he starts going against the people's will for 300 years. For 300 years. The Bible societies were printing Bibles known as the Bible with the Apocrypha. And then in the 1800s, they noticed that people were becoming Catholic. So instead of printing it with that, they could save money and have them Protestant. So they totally eliminated the Apocrypha. So from Martin Luther, who by the way was a Catholic priest, to the 1800s, the Apocrypha, and I own a book with the Apocrypha was in there. But they removed it due to firsthand sources from the Bible societies that Gary Machuda from Apocrypha Apocalypse, his YouTube channel, talked about. I guess the people's will. I remember washing dishes in my apartment and being like, I'm getting chills. You got to be kidding me. The people didn't want this, but the Bible societies wanted this? Why didn't the Bible societies want this? Oh, they're becoming Catholic? Okay, who cares if they're becoming Catholic? Because they were so anti-Catholic. And by this time, people are just starting churches left and right. Knox, Zwingli, Calvin, Luther. I agree with him here. I agree with him there. Actually, I disagree with him here. I'm going to start my own. And then we start going crazy. Is it King Henry VIII? Wanted a divorce. Vatican wouldn't grant it. Starts his own church. That has no apostolic succession. That does not go back to Peter. There is no succession from the authority of Jesus Christ to Peter. And by the way, the area he gave the keys to build the church was on an area that was paganism, where it was called Pan, the god of Pan. Interesting, we've heard that word before. And it was a well, and they would listen. Then they went into the Druids, which is knock on wood. And then I started going down all of these things that the Protestants were blaming the Catholics for, were actually the Protestants doing. It wasn't the Catholic Church. Everyone was anti-Catholic. And then I started to look at history. It wasn't that England hated Ireland. It was that Protestants hated Catholics. And that's why in the 1800s, my ancestors, 1/3 died, 1/3 stayed, and 1/3, which is my ancestors, left Ireland to come to America. And by the way, Ireland was 8 or 9 million at the time. They've still not come back to that population. When you look through history, not as this against that, or the communist against Russia, or the communist against this, or the communist in France or Germany, you notice it's communists against Catholics, communists against Russian Orthodox, against Greek Orthodox, against Eastern Orthodox, against Roman Catholics. And you start viewing the lens through the only church that Jesus Christ started, and obviously, yes, we had a schism in 1054. Orthodox went to the east and Catholics went to the west. But when I started to see all the history and all the conspiracies and all the thousands of hours that I started to view my lens through, not through countries, not through people, but through religion. Atheist, agnostic. Was it Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin was a deist? They didn't even believe in Jesus Christ. They believed in a deist. And liberty. Liberty is essentially the self-gaining. And who's to say the founders knew that liberty would lead into atheism, because your truth is different than my truth. The way you see reality is different than I see reality, and there is no objective reality, there's only a subjective reality. And all of this started to go at the end of 2024, and I started to meet with this Catholic priest, and he walked me through an hour and a half, all these things that I started thinking about and saying about Protestant versus Catholic and everything else. And this isn't against the Protestant brothers and sisters that brought me into the faith, and thank God for them, because they delivered me, my soul and my everything, away from worldly objects. But when I had my first confession in 25 years, I have not been attacked that bad in my life. Whether it was have more alcohol, have more pleasure, don't worry about praying, don't worry about reading the Bible, don't worry about Jesus Christ. And I would get tired during prayer. I'd get tired when I would open the Bible. And then I started reading about this. And essentially what they said is that you have God the Father, who is the judge, and he has the accuser, which is Satan, bring all the accusations against you in the courts of heaven, and they render a verdict whether you open the door, whether you, as the Catholic exorcist, I think it was Father Ripperger said, you're either being oppressed, which everyone is, you're being obsessed, and it could be anything, or you're possessed. And possession, to be honest, in my reality and what I went through, isn't this crazy outward manifestation. It is the possession of your intellect towards the negative or the evil, which could be sports on Sunday, football on Sunday is better than going to church. You know what? I don't need to pray. I don't need to read the Bible. I don't need to fast. During this time, I then started reading about church history. I started reading about the Mass. I started reading about all of the early church fathers. I started reading about the liturgy, the art, the architecture. I started reading about actual history. I started reading about relativism versus objectivism. And essentially, the French Revolution was bringing in relativism. Relativism means there is no truth. There is no objective morality. There's relative morality. But relative morality means that if my relative morality allows me to just murder tens of millions of Orthodox Christians in Russia, that's fine, because it's my objective relative morality, aka communism, Stalin and Mussolini as well, Mao. They have relative morality. And that was the beginning of 2025. And then since 2025, I have full-on, deep-end Catholic teaching, Catholic dogma, took all away Protestantism because I need the deep well of Catholicism. And I have just went really deep. What does the Rosary say? What does Scripture say? What is praying to the saints, the communion of saints? And now I'm going to traditional Latin Mass, and it is beautiful. I'm saying the Rosary every single day. I'm going to Mass every single day. From that time, I am convicted on no secular music. I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news. I don't curse anymore. There is no illicit material, if you know what I mean. There is no, if I happen to look at a woman lustfully on the street, I repent immediately and I put that at the foot of the cross. I could care less about worldly objects, material objects, because I want my soul to always be in a state of grace. That's what it comes down to for me. My soul in the state of grace is way more important than this materialism. And let me tell you something, for 1800 years, everyone was valued publicly on their salvation, their charity, their giving, their prayer life, everything, everything. There were no bank accounts. There were no buying houses. There were no mortgages. There were no crazy taxes. There were no accumulating goods. That was sinful. What is your moral life like? What is your objective literature in reading like? I know this is contrary to history. If you look at the Industrial Revolution, what happened? They ripped men out of the household to work in a factory. Then they ripped women out of the household to work in an office. So now two people are out of the household accumulating goods. Are they going to heaven though? How's their soul? Are they in a state of grace? Do they even believe in God? Do they go to confession? Do they take the Eucharist? Do they know that this is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ? That Eucharist, whether it's TLM or Novus Ordo, that is Jesus Christ in your hand if you're at a Novus Ordo. For me, I take the Eucharist on the tongue only for months now. I don't remember the last time I took it on my hand. I am not good enough to have Jesus Christ in my hand. And you look around, I'm in New York City. I look around, that's what I'm looking at. You're probably not looking at it. That's Times Square, right there. How many people in Times Square are in a state of grace? I had this on my Bible study today. The road is narrow. Every single Catholic person, there was only Catholicism for 1,000 years. Then Catholicism broke off, and then Orthodox broke off. Of course, Orthodox would say that the Orthodox broke off. That's fine. But there's only two apostolic traditions. That's it. Then man-made tradition came and corrupted everything and said that you just need a personal relationship. You have a relative thinking of the Bible instead of a central source who is going to tell you you're a heretic. Insert Arius, first council, one of the first councils. You know, I think it's St. Nicholas slapped him, which is Santa Claus. I think that's all, urban legend. But I now walk around with the rosary, with my prayer life. I don't want to have, let alone mortal sin, I don't want to have venial sin. Because after watching hundreds of videos of near-death experiences of people going to hell, it's real, it's hot, you're tormented, you don't want to be there, and it's forever. It's forever. There is no, okay, take a test at the end of this, maybe you can ask for Jesus Christ. No, it's forever. There are souls right now in there forever being tormented. I don't want to be there. I could care less about the size of my house. I could care less about all the things that people never cared about forever. I was just reading about, there's a saint in my church on my kneeling rail at Holy Innocents that I looked at, and I said, who is that? Then outside of the church, they said, St. Martin de Porres. St. Martin de Porres, are you kidding me? What? St. Martin de Porres? It's amazing, these saints' lives. And then we go outside and it's, what's your car? What's your job? How much money do you make? What's your clothes? What's your house? Do you belong to this? Do you belong to that? Ladies and gentlemen, there is one way, there's one truth, and I finally found it. After 39 years, turning 40 in a month, I finally found it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of drug uses and alcoholism and substance abuses and hallucinogens and these party drugs and this chasing women. I always thought that was the truth. Then I thought it was personal development. Then I thought it was deism. Then I thought it was Jesus Christ, just have faith. No. And to be honest, it's hard. It's not easy to be a practicing Catholic because the dogmas of the church are really, really challenging after you are coming from a relativism. In other words, my reality, the whole world essentially is relative. Well, you can do whatever you want, but the true dogma of the Catholic Church is hard to live by. And now that I'm discerning marriage, it's even tougher because there's no physical touch. There's no physical intimacy. You're not living together. Your first time is after marriage. How do you discern that when you've been secular? Well, now I have good spiritual advisors. So I'll go further into my Catholic conversion or reversion, but it really was a conversion later on. This is part 3, obviously. If you have any questions about part 1 or 2 or 3, leave in the comments below. You want me to clarify anything? I'm going to be just full on the Catholic faith now because I can't be any other way. Jesus showed me, Father showed me, the Holy Spirit has guided me, the Father kept me alive when he shouldn't have. If I died at any other time, I was in hell. If I died by getting hit by the train, if I died by the 4 or 5 concussions and then later on and never finding Christ, or all the drug use and all the sleeping outside of marriage, the amount of times I did it, I'd be in hell. So not only is the content going to completely change on this channel, just me in general, and the morality and being that big brother that needs to happen to a lot of us, the guardrails that need to be put up, whether it's illicit material, whether it's gambling, sports, all these idols that people are putting in front of their lives. Alcohol, oh, it's just a gummy, it's just pot, it's just Sundays, don't worry about it, it's just fantasy football, who cares, it's just Bravo TV, it's just, fictional, really dirty material that these women are reading about. What's the difference if a guy does that on his own and you read about this salacious material or this drama of the Real Housewives? So anyway, it's amazing to be Catholic, and any questions, anyone wants me to clarify anything, leave in the comments below, subscribe.